Well, hello everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to our webinar um, entitled, What Are You Entitled to? And we're going to focus today on entitlements in the digital solutions economy. And we've been spending the past few weeks really walking around the circle of the digital solutions economy. And today it is my privilege to have um, former colleague, SAP expert, Carla Lejeune here to talk to us about and discuss entitlements. Welcome, Carla.
Thank you, John. Thank you for having me.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's great to be able to work with you again. We've touched base on and off for a long time, and this is an exciting opportunity. So as a reminder, let me remind everybody this webinar is being recorded so that you can download it, share it with your colleagues and friends, reference it later on. You can ask questions throughout the session here in your questions panel, and we'll try to answer all of those questions. The questions we don't get to, we will address in one of two ways. We will be doing a podcast shortly after this where we can answer some of your questions or address other issues, so look for that to come out. And of course, we can follow up with you one-on-one. You can download previous webinars from our homepage. And this is our new and latest homepage. We've revised it to help you, our customers, really find the content and information you want more quickly and easily. So come check it out, help you find lots of great content on RevRec, leasing, treasury, and other areas of our business. You can also join us on Facebook and LinkedIn. So chat with us there, join our LinkedIn discussion groups as well as our Facebook discussion groups. We have videos up on YouTube on a number of different topics, and you can sign up for our Insight to Action podcasts through Apple iTunes or iHeartRadio. So for today, we're going to have a quick welcome introduction. I'm going to introduce Carla. We will talk about the digital solutions economy for those of you who are new to this discussion, lay that out a little bit. And then we're going to dive into what I think is a really interesting topic, which is entitlements and how do you manage that? And we'll talk about, what exactly are entitlements? And how do you manage that process? What are some of the issues? And then Carla, in that conversation, will drive some of that. We'll talk about what is SAP Entitlements Management, and then we'll wrap it up. So with that, let me introduce my colleague, friend, and I've had the privilege, Carla, you were on the team for a while working with us. So I guess, you bring 30 years of experience in SAP and in business, 16 years of pre-sales. You were, congratulations, 2015 Service Salesperson of the Year. So that must have been pretty awesome. And currently you are the Director of SAP Outbound Product Management, Senior Director. What does that involve?
Well, that has a lot to do with communicating with customers on direction of the product, taking feedback, working with analysts in order to market the product, making sure our service and salespeople are enabled. So it's essentially a bridge between our development group and our sales folks, as well as our customers.
Oh, that's great. And that's why, I thought it would be great because I know, you have a lot of customer facing opportunities and conversations, and we can flavor that in here for sure. So.
And I'm also noticing that picture there is probably about 30 years old too. I do need to invest in a new picture.
Next time you get to go to Sapphire or something, they give those free screenshots,
I know I need to get there.
No, I think you still probably look the same, right? All right. So with that, I'm going to talk a little bit about the digital solutions economy, remind everybody who's on about the digital solutions economy. Why do we call it the digital solutions economy and not subscription economy? And today we had a great conversation with a partner who is doing a lot of our PR work. And we talked about the fact that we're starting to see this idea of, while customers are embracing the subscription model for their businesses, we're seeing a lot of wear out, if you will, in subscriptions. And quite frankly, subscriptions doesn't really cover all of the the waterfront or the landscape of what these new business models are. And so we really believe that the digital solutions economy is the next evolution. And it includes models like something as a service, XaaS. We know that you can get software as a service, infrastructure as a service, platform as a service. If SAP has this fantastic new program, Rise with SAP, where you can get business transformation as a service, pay for the parts that you use. So everything today can be done as a service. Today, we're going to talk about entitlements. As you buy things, what are you entitled to and what are your entitlements? We have dynamic pricing models as part of that mixture. Outcome-based models, if you think of an outcome-based model as paying for a printer, for example, from a company like HP, Lexmark, Canon, or others, where you don't pay for the printer itself or rent the printer, you pay for it based on the number of pages or the amount of ink that you consume. Speaking of consume, you have usage and consumption-based models that are based on how much of a product you might use. Interestingly enough, we're seeing insurance companies moving in this direction of usage and consumption. You only pay for the amount of insurance based on the miles you might drive. Think of all of the different insurance ads that we see today on TV, for bundling, for example, from Progressive Insurance, but they have that little thing that you can stick in your car, and based on your driving habits and based on the amount of miles you drive, you get a different insurance rate. The other one that we're starting to see is a lot more of these revenue sharing models. What exactly a revenue sharing model is, and this will be interesting, Carla, for our discussion about entitlements, because it's an interesting interplay. But think about, a company like Bandai Namco, who sells Mario Brothers or many other different kinds of games, and I'm a gamer. But they don't sell just through their own website. They sell through other channels, entitlements to their products or to other information. So you can get that through revenue sharing through Amazon, Google, Apple, gaming sites, such as Steam or others. And so entitlements becomes a really interesting dynamic between what the customer is getting, what they're entitled to through what they've done through the primary seller, but then through the secondary market. And that, of course, increases some of the challenges. And of course, we're seeing many more customers engage in that, whether it's through pet food for Chewy.com, our customer Hillrom, who does things in the medical device industry, Hewlett Packard, Peloton, many of these other companies offer these kinds of different models, and we're seeing that migration. I'm sure, Carla, you see a lot of these things. Any thoughts or comments on what you're seeing in the industry today?
No, I mean, very similar to what we're seeing. So more and more, you're just seeing folks are trying to, predict revenue streams. So subscriptions are a way to do that. And then on top of that, also trying to understand, how they manage or can keep track of, if they're going to, do these subscriptions, what are their folks entitled to use based on different customer type, region, channel, however it's sold, and provide good service to their customers throughout this entire process.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
a lot of different, a lot of creative ways of thinking about how to do business in the future that's completely different than the way we did it in the past.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And what's driving that really is this idea of a new customer engagement model or the customer driven model. Customers want to engage with us or engage with companies on their own terms. They want to be able to come in, look for the product that they want, and they can do it anonymously, or you can do it by registering. There's lots of different customer experiences through mobile devices, PCs, many different experiences for that, and you have to connect that experience all together. They want to be in charge and drive this dynamic solution creation, management, and commerce. Meaning I want to come in and choose the channels that I want from Disney or choose the channels I want from Comcast, not make Comcast tell me what I can have, or they want to make me feel like I can tell them what I want to have, but there's rules, engines, and tools behind that, and we have a video on that that you can watch. They want flexible delivery and fulfillment. And this is where we're going to focus today around this space where we'll talk about entitlements and what are you entitled to. They want unified billing and invoicing. They either do or don't want to receive one bill, two bills, depends on the different methodologies and how their businesses work. We have a customer again who sells particular pieces of equipment, but they also rent them. And the customers, their end customers, want two bills, one for the things that they purchase and another for the things that they rent. They want flexible payments and collections. And of course, that is also driven by these idea of dynamic solutions, as well as what are you entitled to? What did you pay for? But once you activate that entitlement, how do I pay and collect on that? It's also, and in November, we're going to talk about this subject with Haresh Chaya and talk about the payments and implications of that, things like Venmo, alternative payment methodologies, revenue sharing, but also cryptocurrencies. And finally, they want privacy, security, and risk. And they want all of these things anywhere, anytime. They want to make it easy, and they want helpful suggestions. So for businesses, how do they manage that? And SAP has an end-to-end solution that they can offer together with Bramasol, that we've brought this all together and can be enabled through the RISE program, for example, or through other partnerships with other hyperscalers and organizations. But SAP offers the gamut here, but you can also focus on individual aspects and pieces of this as well. And today we're going to focus in around the digital supply chain and entitlements. And so with that, Carla, why don't you tell us a little bit about entitlements management? What exactly is entitlements management? And help us understand a little bit better.
Sure. So if you want to go on to the next slide. So what we're going to do is, today we're going to discuss entitlements, what they are and why they're important in enabling digital solutions transformation that we're seeing here in our customer base. So I'm going to start with a quick overview of what entitlements are. We'll talk about the value it brings to our customers, share a quick customer story, and then we'll move into Q&A. So, first, what are entitlements? Entitlements are the rights a customer receives after signing an agreement or purchasing a product or service. It could be rights a customer is entitled to after they subscribe to a service. So depending on the type of product purchased, the customer's rights or entitlements could differ. So for example, if a customer purchased software license, they could be entitled to licenses for a specific number of users. If they purchased a subscription, then the customer could be entitled to access and use of the software for a specific subscription period, and possibly they could be entitled to a specific number of seats during that period. So entitlements can also relate not only to individual products, but they could relate to a combination of products. So you may purchase a piece of software, or hardware, I should say, and it could come with embedded software, training, support, warranty for the physical hardware. All these individual rights are entitlements which a company needs to track. So next slide. So the question then becomes, why are entitlements difficult to track? They're difficult to track because there are a variety of ways solutions can be sold, purchased, delivered, and consumed. And it seems with the COVID-19 pandemic, this has just accelerated the pace of digital transformation we've seen in our customer base. More and more companies are trying to maximize the ways that they can interact with, sell to, and support their customers. This makes the ability to track a company's entitlements even more difficult. So if you think about it, based on the offering, the customer type, the region, the sales channel, et cetera, these are all variables which could affect what a customer is entitled to. So possibly the customer has access to software or content only when in certain regions. Maybe the customer is offered a specific level of training or support based on their customer type. All these variables have to be understood and their complexities managed in order to effectively support these customers. Something else that's unique in the digital solutions economy is there's ongoing interaction which happens with
Right.
customers. In the physical product world, where the interactions tended to be limited. Salesperson sold a product, delivered, the product was delivered, and then interaction didn't happen until it was time to sell a new product. Now with the digital economy, a customer, the interactions happen all the time or could happen all the time. A customer may need to change the user associated with a subscription. They may want to split seats associated with a software license. What we found in the past without an entitlement management solution is often we saw customers creating $0 transactions in order to manage this in their core processes. All this can be managed and supported now with an entitlement management solution.
Right, and of course, there's a couple of, the other thing that I thought was very interesting, and when you brought the digital solutions, is also not only is there that ongoing, so we think of that circle, right? Not only is it an ongoing, constant interaction, as you said, they want to change them, but thinking also about, and I'd be interested in your perspective, if in the process we allow the customer to create their own bundles and their own quote unquote, let's say sets of entitlements,
Mhm.
you certainly want a rules engine and an awareness and an engine behind that that can manage all of those and directly links to the tool you're providing up front to drive and create those bundles has to be pretty interlinked, I would think, with that entitlements engine, right?
Yep. And within, we'll look at the underlying components of entitlement management later, but
Right.
that entitlement modeling component is what you're talking about there. So
Exactly.
we need to be able to understand this bundle of stuff that the customer has chosen, and then the entitlement model will determine, or let me say, break down that bundle of stuff into those individual components that the customer is entitled to. So then no matter who's interacting with the customer, whether it's a salesperson, your service, support, potentially you could have a third party doing your warranties for you, they would all have that same view of the world.
Interesting. Got it. All right.
So you just brought in, so why do you need entitlements? So number one, business offerings are flexible. So you just talked about the ability for customers to create their own offerings. That's the
Right.
ultimate flexibility. And you need to be able to support these offerings, whether you're talking about a single product or complex bundles. Second, you need to understand the rights of your customers, whether you're sales, channel sales, support, or service. You need to understand what your customers are entitled to use in order to successfully interact with them. So this is going to help drive upsells, renewals, but also provide good customer support and drive customer sat. Digital solutions are just different, right? You need to be able to support the needs of your customers as their rights change. Remember earlier where I talked about that constant interaction or often interaction with your customers that is so different than a hardware-driven world. You need to be able to, provide the ability to do splits, and splits license between locations or transfer of access rights,
Hmm.
upgrades, moves to new versions. All of these actions are those that can affect a customer's rights and need to be tracked.
And I know
So,
when I was working at AT&T, we used to do licenses many years ago by site, right? And with
mhm. Yep,
COVID and mobile workers, now that's introduced a whole different perspective on that, right?
absolutely. The final item is, customers. So customers that are actually on the sales side, they need to be able to protect their intellectual property rights. They need to ensure only those who have rights to access can use their solutions or services. Otherwise, revenue leakage.
Yep.
If companies aren't tracking their IP rights, if you think about it, they're essentially allowing allowing their customers or third parties, to use their intellectual property rights for free. And that's, giving your property away for free.
That's right.
No one wants to do that.
Nobody wants to lose revenue, no.
Yep. So if we just orient ourselves to where you already did that, but really we're talking about, we're in that flexible delivery and fulfillment section. And we're just going to drive a little bit deeper in there and walk through a business process just so you can visualize and get your arms around exactly what I'm talking about when you're talking about entitlement management and how it interacts with the rest of this process. So if you want to go to the next slide.
Yep.
So what we're going to do, if you start in the top left, you'll notice that after the sale is complete, the next step is invoicing and fulfillment. So let's walk through this process using a bundled product. So let's say this individual SKU or SKU, this could be only one line item on an invoice. But when you think about it, it actually translates into a bundle which has hardware, software. Let's say you give 10 days of training with, every purchase, 24/7 support and warranty. Entitlement management will translate that one line item from the invoice to multiple entitlements and track them in their current status. So now let's talk about what happens next. When you sell a hardware product, if you go to the right, all you need to do when you sell a hardware product is deliver the product. That was in the order and you're essentially done. Well, unlike physical products, products which are digital in nature often require provisioning, or they may need a license key.
Mm-hmm.
All these downstream processes can be kicked off with entitlement management. And this communication is two-way communication. So I did update your slide. So you can see, two-way communication all along the way. Why do you want to do that? Well, in the digital world, it's not just the delivery of hardware that kicks off downstream processes like RevRec. You may need to also provision the software and create the license key successfully and deliver the hardware. All three of those things need to have happened, and then status change, kick off RevRec, and there you go.
Absolutely, and that back and forth is so critical because RevRec in many cases is driven by the actual engagement or use of that particular software so that you can manage that or recognize that revenue, right? I might have sold a whole ton of software, but if nobody activates or uses it, I can't technically recognize that revenue, right? So
Correct.
absolutely.
Correct. So other things that need to happen, entitlement management also can be updated by consumption vehicles. So however you're managing your consumption, so you'll always know what's been consumed and what entitlements are remaining. You can also use that information on consumption to track the drawdowns against entitlements. So you can kick off notifications to sales, to customers, for renewals or upsells or cross sales. And all of this, of course, increases revenues. So I know we've been talking back and forth throughout the process, but I just want to see, does that make sense? Can you see what entitlement management is doing and how it fits?
Oh, absolutely. And I think hopefully our customer, our guests can see that too. I mean, to me, it plays that important role in between once you've created this order, but now you need to understand, well, what is in there and what's part of that? I mean, as revenue recognition experts, we see this every day, right? We can see a one order line item, but it may fall out into the same thing, 15 different what we call POBs, right? Performance obligations. And that is inextricably linked to this idea of entitlements management. So absolutely, absolutely.
Perfect.
And I can see the Brim portfolio in here too. So absolutely.
So if you just go to the next slide. So, now that we've got our arms around what entitlements are, so remember rights to use something. Let's go ahead and look at the solution itself so we can better understand what's included. So, think of entitlement management is a bridge between your sales side of the house and your provisioning side of the house. It provides a comprehensive modeling tool to drive those, as we mentioned, what could potentially be an individual line item that's coming in from an invoice, down to the individual components that customers are entitled to. And it's going to manage the status of these entitlements throughout its life cycle. So in the middle there, you can see SAP Entitlement Management. It's made of three primary modules. There's entitlement modeling, and this is where those new entitlements are defined and assigned to different offerings. So offering comes in, it's driven out to the entitlements in the entitlement model. The entitlement lifecycle management, this is where the activity that can affect these entitlements are going to be supported and managed throughout the lifecycle. So think status changes, bumps, splits, version changes, renewals, all that kind of good stuff, all managed in the lifecycle management portion.
Okay.
The entitlement repository, this is your 360-degree view of the entitlements in its current status. So it's going to have, think of this as the hub where your current, your historical information on the customer and their entitlements can always be accessed. You can also simulate, we haven't talked about this yet, but you can simulate customer entitlements at a quotation level to support any kind of sales efforts. You can provide this entitlement information, if you look at down at the bottom there, to all the different constituents that need to know about it. So this could be partners that are selling your solution. It could be service providers or customer support that need to know, if I'm going to pick up a phone call, is this customer entitled to this type of support? Or if I'm going to provide warranty service on something, does the customer actually have that warranty service? Customers often want visibility themselves to what they're entitled to. They don't want to purchase more if they already have licenses. They want to understand if they have licenses that are sitting on the shelf, but they also want to understand if they're coming to the end of their licenses and they're going through a hiring process or whatever it happens to be. They want to make sure they have the appropriate amount of licenses in order to support the needs of their organization. So all of these folks need visibility.
Oh, that makes sense. And so that means that there's built into it is a portal that you can activate for customer facing as well.
It can work with some of our other analytic tools. So the information is there, and utilize whatever analytic tool that you'd like to, or portal view that you'd like to, in order to provide that to your customers.
Got it. So I could use like SAP Analytics Cloud to download and present the information, and then use a web-based interface to allow customers to see that information, maybe.
And that's exactly right. And that's what many of our customers are doing.
Great. Okay.
Now we also, one last thing before I just interrupted you, John, I'm sorry, but one last thing I want to talk about is we talked about the communications as well. So entitlement management provides many APIs to connect with provisioning and license key software. So for example, like Waibu. Waibu is a great partner of ours. And we actually now support direct integration with Waibu. And although I'm not going to talk about futures, I just want to point out that interaction and connection with Waibu is only going to get stronger and stronger as time goes on. So a little, alluding to the future.
I have to confess, I don't know what Waibu is. So.
Oh, I'm sorry. Waibu is a license key software. So they,
okay.
And they're very big in Europe.
Okay. In here, I love these stickers, right? I love the establish entitlements, consume entitlements, enforce entitlements. Maybe you can spend a little more time the establishment of the entitlements and the modeling. How can organizations, and maybe you're going to talk about that, use this tool, use it to model and establish, what kinds of entitlements they might want to set up, or what entitlement models they might want to set up?
I mean, really, how to go about it is just understand what kind of offerings you want to provide to your customers.
Mhm.
So each of these models are in individual offerings. Now they can be bundled up into, a single offering and drawn down. But, it could be when you set up a model, it could be something like for every license that's sold, you want to provide, 10 training days, or every 50 licenses. There's logic involved in actually the connection between the sales order into these models that will actually break that down into the entitlements as you want.
Yeah. Okay.
So it's really a flexible drop down type of modeling tool.
Hmm.
So you don't have to think about coding in that kind of information. The typical type of entitlements that folks are going to want to provide can easily be delivered out of the box using the configuration options that are available in the entitlement modeling portion.
Great.
Key to that, and I'm glad you bring it up because it's one of the big differentiators of why folks go to entitlements. You may say, what did they do before? Before entitlement management, what did folks do? It was often a homegrown system. And
Yep.
every time sales would come up with a new idea of how they wanted to provide the product to their customers, it was often custom code, which could take months in order to complete.
Hmm.
So essentially, that means months of time that went from idea generation to delivery to customers that were wasted in coding.
Got it.
And that goes away with entitlement management.
That's great. We see so many customers. In fact, we're working with one customer right now who um, really is trying to drive that dynamic um, marketplace, respond to the dynamic marketplace, and engage with um, creating new customer models much more quickly. And of course, this would be extremely helpful, that kind of a modeling tool, as well as the inherent linkages all the way back into, you know, we see the consume the entitlements, but of course we have all of the issues and challenges around, um, driving into the GL and doing collections and doing, um, all of that kind of activity that drives the actual collection, the order to cash process, right? So.
hmm And you'd be surprised where you find entitlements. Once you start opening up the door and talking to people, we've got, I don't, don't, I can't say customer names, but there are customers that deliver products like toothpaste and toothbrushes and all of these things to dentists. So remember when you go and get your teeth
Hmm.
cleaned and they hand
Hmm.
you that package, the dentists are entitled to a certain number of those products by one of our customers, and they
Huh.
need to track the drawdowns against those and
Right.
when they need to renew. There was a battery company that we're talking to that did recycle batteries,
Hmm.
and a
Hmm.
lot of it was based on how much they could recycle was based on the the lead, and they had to track the drawdowns against that and
Interesting.
understand. Yeah, there's just once you talk to customers, there are so many different and interesting use cases that are beyond just what we're, talking about today and talking about, we've been focused on hardware, software, and that changing dynamic. Think about
Oh,
the automotive industry. How much of your car is a computer nowadays?
yes, yes. You're not even, so I think of, we have a great customer. Um, we've talked to many of the major automotive, whether you pick any single one of them. And of course, you have an interesting dynamic there where you buy a brand new car and it comes with Sirius XM radio for a trial period of 90 days or a year or something like that. And then afterwards, you now need to sign up, and you're entitled to a bonus reduced package. So many of these products that we traditionally think of as, I sold you a thing and we're done, come with all of these entitlements, right? Yeah, honestly, right? Your warranty on your car, if I buy the extended warranty for my powertrain, that's an entitlement, isn't it? So,
Yep.
yeah.
And then think about, we've been, like I said, focused on software, but think of the media industry. Think of, and not just media like, the Netflix, the Disney Pluses of the world, but also the Reuters, et cetera,
Mm-hmm.
where they'll sell their content and you have a certain number of downloads of a picture or something like that. All of
Absolutely.
those things are entitlements
Getty
as well.
Getty Images and all of those different ones. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. That's
And
why,
then
I love this subject. So it's exciting.
oh, no, and I just interrupted you again, and I didn't mean to. The last thing I wanted to point out too is this is a cloud solution, but it's also, I like to call it independent solution. So it's, can be deployed on any system architecture. You do not need any
Interesting.
SAP system architecture. So we have some customers that have no other SAP footprint other than entitlement management.
Oh, wow. Oh,
Yep.
that's a great opportunity. Cool. All right.
Which is also huge in M&A. So think of customers who are acquiring other organizations, and the first thing they need to understand is, what does this new company that we just bought, who have they sold to, and what are their customers entitled to, and how in the world do I get my arms around that as quickly as possible?
Mm-hmm.
Entitlement management is a great way to do that.
Mm-hmm. All right. So next one.
So this, I'm assuming that you're going to, allow people to, potentially download this presentation or look at it later. So I
Mm-hmm.
have this slide because it just provides a lot more detail on the underlying components and EMS's capabilities. So I'm not going to go through that in detail, but I just wanted it to be part of the deck for anyone who um, wanted to look at that afterwards.
Right. And I think the thing that I hit when I read through your deck here is a couple of different things. I just love the end-to-end lifecycle management. I think that's so important. Certainly the SAP, we talk single source of the truth, but this idea of the 30 public APIs for integration and migration, I think it goes very well to what you just positioned as the power of it as a standalone cloud solution, right?
Correct, correct. So do we work well with SAP? Of course we do. We're SAP. Is it necessary? No.
Mm-hmm.
So, as much as we'd love you to, have SAP soup to nuts, if you're using a different sales order system,
Mm-hmm.
we can access. If you're using a different invoicing system, not a problem. We of course need to communicate with provisioning and license key, systems,
Right.
your fulfillment systems, whatever they happen to be, we can
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
speak to and connect with all of those.
Fantastic. All right.
So I know we want to leave some time for Q&A, so I thought I'd just share a couple of success stories,
Be terrific.
and
Mhm.
then we will stop with there. So the first story is a company called Sandvik. They were our first customer. They're a Swedish company, and they provide high-tech equipment, so tools and services for mining and construction industry.
Mhm.
Sandvik is an example of an IM&C customer who is transforming their business from the traditional to a digital solution business. So they're moving from selling equipment to allowing their customers to purchase, manage, and renew software as well, whether it's embedded in their products or software that augments the machine capabilities.
Mhm. Mhm.
So utilizing EMS, Sandvik is able to now deliver on new license models. They're leveraging software to offer various features on the same physical products, which now they can monetize. They're providing Sandvik's customers a level of self-service. And what I mean by that is they're allowing them to move licenses across different devices within their organization. And this will automatically trigger um, not only the new entitlements as this movement happens, but also downstream processes like license key generation. And all of this is triggered based on a customer action, much like you had mentioned earlier when a customer is configuring their own bundles.
Hmm.
Customers
Hmm.
literally moving licenses across their organization. And then it's also, providing that insurance or assurance, I should say, that their software is not being used without permission. So, important both from a risk factor perspective, but from a revenue leakage perspective as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
And then a second customer, and well, I want to keep an eye on time. There's some information on implementation. So, typical implementations, this is very similar, is up to 4 months.
Hmm.
I would share we've had some customers that have done paid POCs for about 6 weeks. And then
Okay.
what they find is this isn't a throwaway. What they're modeling, what they're doing as part of that, they immediately can utilize in their production system. So it cuts down, a shortened implementation time cycle as
No,
well.
that's great because it's cloud. It's got that flexibility. So yeah, absolutely. Okay, so
Yep.
another customer, and I'll hopefully build out. Look at that.
Yeah, there you go. So this is ARM Holdings. It's a software design company.
Hmm.
It's about 1.4 billion
Hmm.
out of Great Britain.
Yep.
They design microprocessors and sell physical intellectual property and related technology and software. So their processor designs are enabled in about 100 billion silicon chips. So they're powering products from sensors to smartphones to supercomputers. Something else that's interesting is they have a huge ecosystem. So they got about 1,000 partners that they're working with.
Right.
Um, their challenge was wanting the capability to trial run new business models. When I mentioned earlier that we had customers, what is the most common solution that we see if they don't have EMS, it's homegrown. Um, you know, that was based on um, some of our experiences with ARM. So they had their own current systems, and they couldn't easily support the new business model. So it
Okay.
often took that months of development and testing in order to support a new business model, and it just delayed them in bringing new solutions into the market.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
and now another thing that was key is they wanted to, so this is speaking back to where we talked about the configurability of that modeling tool.
Right.
They wanted the solution to be enough for their licensed business users to support. So those that understand how they wanted to license, not developers.
Oh,
Let's see,
interesting.
let's see.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's some of the key ones. They also very, very were interested in, they said their keyword was frictionless access in a single
Hmm.
version of truth for both their partners, because I mentioned they have that huge partner network, as well as their customers themselves.
Yeah. Yeah. We're somewhat familiar with ARM because of their relationship with one of our key customers, NVIDIA. So yes, know them
Great.
well. So those are great models. What what do you think? One of the questions that I always ask when we think about the customer stories and the customer successes, what do you see as the initial, we talk about entitlements, but does anybody come to you and say, oh my God, I've got an entitlement problem? What do you hear as the challenges, or what are some key words, Carla, that when you get in front of a customer and you hear these words from someone, you say, oh, so, this is where entitlements management might help you.
Yeah. A couple different ways. Often what was interesting is we see a lot of people coming with a warranty problem. So warranty and warranty volumes.
Hmm.
So we've got we've got a new customer in China who is using entitlement management as step one, as a tool to manage their warranty business.
Okay.
And a lot of that is volume based in the fact that they've got third parties managing their warranty business. We've got another large chip producer in the US that is looking at it. So if you hear volumes, warranties, things like that, Great use case. Two, but there are the buzzwords. If you hear anybody saying everything is a service, subscription,
Right.
um, digital transformation, outcome-based economy,
Yep.
all of those things, um, that to me, it makes the hair go up on the back of my neck in a very, very positive way, because I'm thinking about, how are you going to manage that? How are you going to know who gets what and when and how much?
hmm hmm
So, I mean, those to me, who gets what, when, and how much?
Yeah, I have an interesting. I have my own interesting question. It kind of came up in a pre-discussion I had. How could you see? So let me ask a setup question. So because it's cloud-based, I assume, and you said that it can work in any environment. I assume that it works with SAP ECC as well as it works with SAP S/4HANA, correct?
Correct.
So for companies, let's imagine, and we see this in the industry all the time. In fact, we have 3 customers we're speaking with now, um, where we see either mergers. So I think you had an interesting point about the mergers, but what about divestitures, where you know or migrations, could I in theory use entitlements management as a way to dip my toe in the S/4HANA or prepare for S/4HANA by shifting my entitlements management to the cloud? And it doesn't really matter where I am in terms of platform migration. I still get a centralized way to do that. Is that a
Yep.
fairly accurate statement?
Yep. Fair enough. I mean, like you said, the M&A example previous, M&A is change, right?
Right.
M&A is nothing more than change. I got more stuff than I had before. Um, you know, uh, what is deacquisition? I'm losing my college word here. So, when you're selling, it's change as
Divestiture.
well.
Yeah.
Divestiture. There you go. Thank you very much. College term.
Yep.
It's change as well. So an entitlement management is a great way to have that single repository, to have 360-degree view of where you are as you're enabling change.
Yeah, because I think of, some of these software companies or the media companies that are splitting up and dividing into 2 different organizations, and you watch this every day and watch them say, well, okay, so I'm going to focus on, mostly on large business, and your, company B is going to focus on small businesses and individuals. There could be a lot of overlap, and how am I managing the separate entitlements? And quite frankly, you could manage that, shift it, and make it an easier split using a tool like this, right?
Yep. Yep, absolutely. And then if you actually, truly divest and send it off to another company completely, not just a vision or something like that, entitlement management can manage those splits as well.
It's
And
fantastic.
now, you have to relicense or reprovision or, whatever that happens to be.
Okay, great. All right. I don't see any other questions online right now. Um, so thank you. That was fantastic. Carla, I always learn, since the early days of working with you here, and then, SAI and here, I always enjoy working with you. I learn so much. And of course, we'll continue to talk with you. I had a couple of things that I certainly want to follow up with you on, and um, CI and entitlements with that and modeling. Um, but in kind of wrapping up, and I'll give you a moment. I'm going to wrap up with these points, but I want to give you a chance when I'm in a moment to kind of give me your kind of, I use this phrase, what's the big so what? Why do people care about this? But we're seeing that customers are driving how they want to interact and transact with us, and this creates this idea of complex bundles. They want to be able to bundle it and manage them and figure out what they want. And of course, that can be software, it can be hardware, it can be warranties, it can be entitlements or rights to something down the line. Again, tipping my hand a little bit as a gamer, quote unquote, or somebody who enjoys playing video games every now and then. I'll buy the game of the year edition. And that comes with the rights to buy things later on or buy the latest downloadable content at a discount in the future. And customers need tools, but it's not just the traditional industries that we think of. The world is changing to a need for entitlements management and this digital solutions economy where so many more we're seeing different business models where customers are extending the way they engage with their customers and bundling together products, services, and other tools. And that requires you to have a robust tool to, as you say, establish or model those tools, to measure and watch the consumption of those tools and as those entitlements, and manage how and who gets what when, and the usage thereof, and then of course the enforcement of them, because at the end of the day it's your IP, it's your intellectual property that you're selling. So to me, this is a crucial linchpin in the successful transition and management of your digital solutions economy, your move to a new model. So, Carla, anything you want to wrap up with before we end here?
No, I think we covered it. I think that was a good summary.
All right. Well, thank you so much. Of course, I will be in touch with you on many other things. We'd love to have you back. We'll follow up with a podcast about a couple of key issues. Folks, look for our new next webinars that are coming out. We're going to be focusing heavily on really revenue accounting and talking about some real world customer experiences, using revenue accounting as a lens into things like entitlements management and BRIM and other tools and areas there. We'll be talking about the migration into S/4HANA and then continuing our journey in November around the circle with discussions of cash management and other areas. So Carla, again, thank you so much for taking time out of your tremendously busy day at the end of the quarter. And I want to thank everybody for joining us, and go out there, everybody, and make it a great day. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John.